3 words to describe Japan: safe, funky, friendly. I have no sense of fear on the streets. I've walked back from a bar twice now, a little bit and felt no risk, no danger. After a month in Japan, I'm still blown away by it as much as I was in the first few days. It feels alien but not too strange. I wish someone had told me before we came just how relaxed and overwhelmingly helpful people would be. It would have taken away a little bit of that initial nervousness about, oh, what happens if I get it wrong? It feels like in Japan, as a foreigner, you get forgiven for making stupid mistakes. We got off the tram last night and we tapped out on the wrong door. The driver got out, chased us down the platform and asked us very nicely to come back and tap out on the right machine. But there was no aggression, there was no huffing. It was all very polite, very respectful. So you make a mistake, but you're forgiven. Coping with the etiquette is really quite funny because there's that kind of human thing that if somebody bows to you, you want to bow back. And then it gets a little bit stupid because you're in a 7-Eleven buying a couple of cans of beer and the whole process takes about 10 minutes because it's thank you very much, and bow again and bow again. And there's a queue building behind you, but you're still doing the polite bit. For a foreigner, it's quite difficult to understand when to start and when to stop. Oh my God, crammed so much in that first month. A couple of weeks in Tokyo, then down to Kyoto and Osaka on the fantastic Shinkansen. Oh my God, that is such a brilliant experience. Then back to Tokyo, picked up a rental car, a couple of days by Mount Fuji, waiting for the clouds to dissipate. They didn't. Driving on down then to Kobe, across to Shikoku, and staying there in a couple of smaller places. From Shikoku, a ferry across to Kyushu, to Oita, which is a city next to Beppu, which is famous for its onsens. A couple of days there, then across to Nagasaki, and now been in Nagasaki for a few days. All very different, but all very Japanese. Kyoto was vaguely disappointing. I had anticipated that it would be very touristy, as its history is the previous capital of Japan and it's legendary for its beautiful old houses and streets, but it was such a temple to tourism. A couple of the prime hotspots in Kyoto are the Fushimi Inari Shrine and Ponticho Alley. Ponticho Alley is an old street that runs parallel to the river, and it's full of tiny little restaurants, but they're rammed wall to wall with Western tourists, and they just don't feel as friendly or as welcoming as everywhere else I've been. The Fushimi Inari Shrine, that was surprisingly beautiful. And while it was very busy, it didn't seem to lose its serenity. There's a couple of areas in Kyoto that are touted to have the most beautiful old-fashioned houses and shops. very narrow, very steep, lots of steps, this kind of thing. So went and did that. And again, it's rammed, absolutely rammed. I don't want to condemn people for going to do the tourist bit. It's just, maybe do it with a bit more grace sometimes, you know? Queue nicely to have your shot taken in front of X temple or X little special area shop. Osaka has a very different vibe to Kyoto. In the Dotonbori area in Osaka, it's incredibly busy. Everybody goes to Dotonbori because it's got a really good buzz. Lovely restaurants, a street full of them, and it's got mad street signs in the restaurant area. If you're going to a crab restaurant, there is a massive crab stuck to the front of the building waving its claws about. The food in the tourist areas is a little bit touristy, but still delicious. And my favourite, takoyaki. And there's like a takoyaki stall every 6 feet. I mean, you could start at the top of the street, eat your way down it, and you'd be five times bigger at the end of it, stuffed to overflowing with takoyaki. I think so far I have eaten half of Japan. Oh my God. Start with the basics. I've done the ramen, I've done soba noodles, I've done sushi again and again and again, because why wouldn't you? I've done okonomiyaki, God, I can't even say it now. Okonomiyaki, the beautiful cabbage pancakes, oh, to die for. Curry, Japanese curry, it's different. And tonkatsu. Tonkatsu's like the pork or chicken fillet that's deep fried in panko breadcrumbs, and it's so crispy and it's heaven. Donburi, basic rice bowls with beef and onions on top and a little bit of mush. And it's fun trying the different regional dishes. Like in Oita, tried the toriten chicken, which is it's chicken pieces in tempura batter. But there's a little bit of kind of, I don't know, spicy flavour. And the fun of it is actually exploring and eating bits and pieces that you wouldn't normally come across. My favourite food so far, I'm going to have to be really boring and say it's the sushi and the sashimi, because I have been blown away by the variety and the freshness. The sushi restaurants that I've tried so far have mostly been kaiten sushi, which is conveyor belt. And that kind of sounds a little bit ordinary. It's not. It's superb. Have also tried a more formal sushi restaurant where you have your menu and you have your own sushi chef face to face across the counter, and you're ordering direct from him. That was amazing. They are so helpful, so friendly, and the food was spectacular. Having the joy of seeing it prepared in front of you and watching the expertise, you know, the years of training that's gone into preparing food that you eat with your eyes first and you pay homage to before you stuff it in your mouth. Brilliant experience. There's one food that I tried that I probably wouldn't bother with again, and that was kushikatsu. And this is kind of a selection of meats and vegetables on a skewer, again rolled in panko, deep fried, and served with the sauce. And you dip you eat. I just found that all the flavour was overwhelmed by fried breadcrumbs. And I kind of thought, nah. I was anticipating that I was going to be spending quite a lot of money feeding myself and that booze would be expensive. And I have been surprised, very pleasantly surprised, that I can have a really delicious dinner for two with beer, with highballs, with whatever you want to drink, and still come out of there having paid, I don't know, anywhere between kind of £25 and £45. Now, that in comparison to what I would be paying in the UK is incredible. And at the price point, the quality of the food is amazing. It's so good and beautifully presented. Driving in Japan is initially quite stressful because you don't have any idea about road layouts, whether everything works the same as you used to. And it kind of does and it doesn't. Once you get over the slightly different style of junctions, is actually quite straightforward. And there are some lovely things. Like you get to a road junction, and if it's a complicated junction, there will be a sign on the overhead, and it will have a colour stripe, like a little red stripe on the sign next to the name of the town, a little blue stripe. And then you look at the road, and if it's blue up there, the road is painted blue, and you just follow the colour. It is like follow the yellow brick road and get where you want to go. It's so simple, but it's genius. The driving standards are interesting. Everybody's very polite most of the time, obedient to road junction regulations, particularly pedestrian crossings. If you're turning left on a green light, you still have to stop for a pedestrian crossing. Really loving exploring the range of accommodation options here in Japan as well. Stayed in a little rental apartment, quite formal hotels, business hotels, little mom and pop businesses, and they've all been beautiful in the level of service. You know, the level of facilities varies depending on where you are, how much you're paying, but universally clean and friendly people, helpful. Also stayed in a funky place, a love hotel. This is the concept where this is the place you take your mistress. So you pitch up and you can pay by the hour or you can stay overnight. The advantage is the room sizes tend to be absolutely massive in comparison to the normal business hotels. You might get a jacuzzi bath, and the rooms are quite well equipped. Not with your standard kind of toiletries and luxuries. You look for a hairdryer. Yes, there's a hairdryer, but there's also a vibrator in case you should need it. I should say about the vibrator that it is very clear that this thing has been ultra sterilised, and there are kind of all alcohol wet wipes everywhere, and it's all wrapped in plastic. And it's actually presented as a neck massager or a back of the leg massager. But hey, you know. And there's a couple of takeaway menus. One of them is pizza, and the other is you can have delivered room service, your sexy stockings, you can have your maid's outfit, you can have your basically whatever you want to dress up as. of the things that's fascinated me is umbrellas, right? I mean, this is just such an everyday thing. Everybody carries an umbrella. It rains a lot here. You have see-through umbrellas that you can buy in any of the convenience stores, the 7-Eleven, the Lawsons, etc. And they're really cheap and cheerful. And then you see these self-same umbrellas kind of abandoned for somebody else to use, not thrown on the street, but hanging on a wall or hanging on a hook on the back of a door. You go into the loos and it's not raining and there are umbrellas propped up in some of the toilets. Now, it could be that people have forgotten them, but it's sort of unlikely. It feels almost like a sharing. You know, it stopped raining, I don't want to carry this, so somebody else can have it. If you need it, it's there. Have an umbrella on me. It's such a sociable thing to do. I feel I could live in Japan. Whether I would want to live in Japan is another question. It would be easy, I feel, and it is seductive. I quite like the politeness. I like the sense of order. I like the sense of organisation. But I do feel there's a little bit of spontaneity that's lost, that maybe you can't just decide that I'm going XYZ, pitch up at the train station, jump on the train, zip off somewhere. You feel like you have to do more planning here. You have to be a little more organised. And one of the things that I have felt is that travelling from Tokyo down to Nagasaki, while there are detail differences, it's still Japan. It's still Japanese. It still feels fundamentally you're in the same place. And being European, I find that kind of can be a bit limiting. I like to go from one place to another in a relatively short space of time, a day's travel, 2 days travel, cross a border and find that you're doing something very different. I will definitely want to come back to Japan. There's so much more here to kind of explore. I think even in a 3-month trip, you can only ever just be scratching away at the little bits. And I think there's a depth and breadth of history here that I have no real idea about, and I would like to understand better.